everyone and welcome back to my channel, BethChatsBooks. Now today I'm going to do another catch up of some of the books that I've been reading. I have finished work today, it is a Saturday. I had a nice long bath, hence wet hair, and I decided to just put on, I call this kind of my baggy pyjama top. I use it as a chill top and I also use it as a pyjama top. But I thought I'd put this on and just chill out, and then I thought the house is empty for once in a blue moon because there's 5 of us that live here, so it's very rare that that happens. So why don't I utilise it to catch you guys up on what I have been reading. So let's just get on with it. So I have finished the Stonewall Reader by the New York Public Library, which I had started when we last spoke. So I have finished that. I was actually really enjoying that. I was getting a good hour and a bit chunk done when I was going to the gym. So now that the weather's changing, I have decided to go back to the gym. Me and my stepmom and my dad, we have been enjoying walking a lot throughout the summer. And as we're going into autumn and the season's going to change and it's going to get darker earlier, we decided why don't we just keep up the walking but do it at the gym on the treadmill. And then I can also do swimming now that that's back on and different things. So I have been listening to audiobooks while I've been doing an hour on the treadmill. And so I managed to finish this a lot sooner than I anticipated because I was enjoying it and I was listening to it every time I was on the treadmill. It was a good 2 or 3 hours chunk each week. So anyway, I finished this book and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It's really interesting, and I think what was so good about listening to this on audiobook is that it actually has real life recordings of the LGBT community having interviews about their experience at Stonewall. So you had that authenticity of hearing people's own voices saying their own words as opposed to transcripts of people's own words. Marsha P. Johnson's voice is on here, Sylvia Rivera's voice is on here, and a whole host of other LGBTQIA plus individuals. So the book is structured into before Stonewall, during Stonewall, and after Stonewall. So Stonewall was a famous group of riots that occurred outside the Stonewall club / pub. It's often described in the book that it was a bit of a sleazy, rundown club / pub-esque type of environment in which the LGBT community were able to go and to interact and to party, drink alcohol, take drugs, meet other people, have sexual liaisons with each other in an area that was known and welcomed by the community for people within the community to find one another as such. So a lot of people class the Stonewall Riots as one particular day, but a lot of the testimony and people's accounts that were there during the Stonewall said that these riots happened over a few days, a considerable amount of time, not just one day. So what happened in 1969, the police raided the Stonewall. This had been happening for a consecutive period of time, and on this particular day the LGBT community decided to fight back, to say no, why do we have to keep being searched and thrown out of our own club and our own area. And obviously it paved the way for LGBTQ rights in America. This event happened in New York, but also around the world. A lot of LGBTQIA plus individuals see this as a landmark and as a milestone in their history. So it goes through people's own accounts, excerpts from different stories, written accounts, interviews. So it's really interesting, and it goes through the whole LGBT spectrum. There's excerpts from lesbians, gays, drag queens, transvestites, the whole spectrum, and it's very informative on the history of the LGBT community and the derision within the LGBT community. For example, drag queens were seen as less in the gay community, and a lot of gay men didn't feel supportive of them and their rights, and they Sylvia and Marcia do talk about in this book how they tried to set up charities for transgender and drag queens, transgender kids and drag queens, and how they didn't get any backing from the gay community. So it's really interesting. I have decided at some point I will get it in physical copy because I think it's a really important text to go back to and to every so often check in with. And I think it's such an incredible thing that the LGBT history books are being made and that we are making a concerted effort to bring LGBT history back into the mainstream and to find these narratives that have been hidden for so long and to add them to the patchwork of history as a whole. And I think this is a great first start, and this is a really interesting and informative read, so really enjoyed that. And then the next book I read was The Holiday by Tm Logan. So I also ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. I was very impressed with this, to be honest with you. I have a little bit of a bugbear with thrillers and best-selling thrillers. Richard and Judy Book Club endorsed thrillers and Waterstones endorsed thrillers, and because I find that often books that are overhyped, particularly thrillers, I end up having some fundamental issue with, that there's a plotting issue or a structure issue or the reveals are clunky, and I end up kind of feeling like maybe I'm a bit too snobby with thrillers. But this one I was very impressed with because I did fall into the hook, line and sinker that Tm Logan produced for this book. The whole point was it was meant to be a smoke and mirrors and you were invested in something else, which I was. And I was trying to second guess where that was going, and that was quite clever because it allowed you to latch on to that storyline to develop a secondary one. So this follows Kate, and she has 3 best friends, Izzy, Jennifer and Rowan, and every year they've always celebrated their birthdays or done something big, and then in the last few years their friendship has dwindled away. They live in different areas and they all have kids now and they struggle to see each other. So it's their 40th birthday, so they decided to do one big holiday together and bring their husbands and their kids to the holiday, and they stay in a posh villa in France, and then some events happen and we have to figure out why they happen. So I don't really want to say anything because I don't want to lead you down the garden path with that, but I thought it was quite good. The ending was a little bit cliched at the end, but the reveal was unexpected for me. I liked the themes it was exploring. I think it was very strong, and I would actually read another thriller from this author because I do think they did a bit more of a twist on the classic thriller structure, and I found it enjoyable to read. So then I read on Kindle Know My Name by Chanel Miller. Again, this is a book that I can't talk about, which I mentioned in my last video, because it is for the BookTube prize reading, so any books that I read for that prize I cannot talk about until the vlog goes up and you can see my thoughts, which will be at the end of September. Then I also read Address Unknown by Cressman Taylor. Now this is classed as a modern classic. This was originally published in 1938, and it is a series of letters, an epistolary novel, but it's incredibly short. It's about 30 or 40 pages, and it follows 2 gentlemen, one who has moved back to his hometown in Germany, and another man who's a colleague of his that works for an art gallery in the US, who's continuing to run his business for the man who's moved back to Germany. And I think it's Martin and Max. So Max is the one that's staying in America and Martin's the one that's returned to Germany. And it follows the rise of the Nazi regime in Germany and how, in a very short period of time, relations between Martin and Max become quite strained. So Max is Jewish, and Martin has always been quite supportive of Max. He's never explicitly referenced any issue with Max being Jewish, but then when he returns to Germany, their correspondence through their letters to one another becomes very strained, and she explores in very short amount of pages the destruction that the written word can have on another person's life and the rise of Nazism and how destructive that thought process is, and how it tears apart friends. So it's very powerful in a supercharged, very slim novel / novella. So I gave that 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was really impressive. Obviously, because of its sheer length, there wasn't that much that you could sink your teeth into and analyse and really get involved. But I think what it aimed to do, considering it was written so long ago, it still packs that punch. And obviously our fascination, our abhorrent horror, but morbid curiosity around the rise of Nazism is still very much there. So this book still has an audience who will understand and connect with this book. And then the next book I read, so I have signed up to the Voracious Reader email list, I guess that's what you would call it. So it's just a platform where it allows you to have access to some free ebooks. So some of these books have come out this year and some have come out years ago, a few years ago, and they're all self-published, and the idea is that you read these books and review them on Goodreads or on Amazon and just try and support some authors who need a bit of promotion, who want to connect with readers. So I've found it a very useful site at the moment. I have quite enjoyed reading some of the books. So Control Switch by Leanna Dell. So I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and I didn't expect to enjoy it because I'm not really a contemporary reader, but I found the writing really easy to get into, and it was just a fun, palate cleansing, pleasant read. And for a lot of us that like a little bit of fluff every so often, I would highly recommend this book. I think it will give you that fix. So this follows Candice Bradshaw, who is a woman who thinks she's got her whole life together. So she is promoting a book on how, through the art of self-control and controlling one's emotions and being super productive, you can get the best out of life. And the book is about to go on a book tour. She's got a husband who seems to adore her, and she has her life together until she has a incident while she's about to start her book tour that sets a catalogue of disasters that slowly unravels her life, and she has to start picking up the pieces again and moving forward with her life. And I find that I still remember the characters quite vividly. What I really enjoyed about this book is it focuses on female friendships and relationships, how for Candice, learning to strengthen those relationships and trust those relationships allowed her to move forward with her life. So I thought it was really fun. I think it had a depth to it that was really good. It wasn't just fluffy for the sake of being so, more to grasp than that. And Candice became a more fleshed out character. We didn't always like the decisions that she made or the way that she saw things, but we could empathise. So I think this author has great potential, and I really enjoyed reading this book. And I will be continuing to read more books that are brought to my attention through Voracious Readers, so I will link it down below if you're interested. I gave Control Switch 4 out of 5 stars. And then another book that I read through Voracious Readers was Healing the Heart of a Cowboy by M.J. Andrews. So I am not a massive romance fan, so I ended up just giving this book 3 out of 5 stars because I wanted to be more experimental with romance as a genre and see whether I can enjoy it. I do have a bit of a cringe radar with romance, so I think that's why I didn't give it any higher, because there's certain things that just turn me off with romance that I think were present in this book, but it's not a fault of the book, it's just more an issue with the genre that I have. So this follows Aubrey, who's originally a Canadian, who she's running away from her disillusioned marriage. She finds out that her husband had an affair, and she's moving to Texas to take up a job as a counsellor in the local area and to start a new life afresh because she doesn't want to stay in Canada where her ex is. And obviously she ends up staying on a ranch in Texas, and there's a cute ranch hand man, cowboy man, who she starts this budding romance with. It's an on and off, I hate you, but I fancy you kind of plotline. So for people who like that, it's thoroughly enjoyable. It's part of a series, so I believe there's 3 books out at the moment. This is the very first one. There are some very steamy scenes in the book, so if you want a bit of that, then by all means. I do find that I'm not as interested in the actual romance scenes. I end up flicking the pages across and moving, no euphemism intended there, but I just skip past those bits because they don't really interest me, because obviously they're not really about the plot. But for some people I know that makes a romance novel for them. But overall the plot was strong enough that there was things I could enjoy. It wasn't just all romance, so there was a development of plot. So if you like romance, I would highly recommend this book to you. And then I am just reading a few bits and bobs at the moment. So I am still reading Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow. I am only 140 pages in, so I really need to get some of this read today. Again, can't talk too much about this because this is on the BookTube Prize Finals category. It's in the final 6 non-fiction books. But obviously it's about the Weinstein scandal and how Ronan Farrow is one of the people that helps break that story. So there's that. And also when I finish that, I will be reading No Visible Bruises by Rachel Louise Schneider, which is about domestic abuse and some stats around that in the US, I believe. There's that one. And I am currently reading called The Lake House by Jo Clifford, which I've requested from NetGalley. So I am on around chapter 10 or 12 of that, so I think I'm just under halfway, so I will be also cracking on with that this weekend. And another book that I requested from NetGalley was Act of Revenge by John Bishop MD. So this is another thriller type of book. I don't know anything about that one either, so that one and The Lake House I will tell you much more about once I finish them. And I am also listening to The Confessions of Franny Langton by Sarah Collins on my library audiobook. So on the app BorrowBox, I'm listening to the audiobook of The Confessions of Franny Langton. Also at the beginning of September we'll need to start reading The Women of Brewster Place by Gloria Naylor. So this is our pick for September for BarterHordes Bookclub, so I will link again the Voxer down below if you'd be interested in reading and joining. So we're discussing the books at the beginning of every month, and then around mid-month we start discussions. So we have been discussing Paris Trout, which was our August pick. And then I have a couple of other books from the Ferocious Readers site that they've recommended that I need to get to. And I have a few books from my mother that I do want to get to as well. So there are a few things that I've got on the go, and we'll see how I get on with that. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new video. Bye now.